right. Welcome to the Lockdown Podcast. We are a man down because some of us have to pay bills and work. So, no harm, no foul. This is essentially the go home before Christmas episode, essentially. So, anybody who actually watches us, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. So to the nitty gritty that is WWE, we get Monday Night Raw to kick off with what I view as one of the greater confrontations in the last year of WWE, kind of rekindled. It did go away for a bit, and now it is back with a vengeance. We have CM Punk and Seth Rollins basically going ham once again. Um, like are you enjoying this absolute masterpiece of a conflict between Seth Rollins and CM Punk?
It's been a slow burn for me. It's now starting to pick up, especially with their match main eventing Raw's debut on Netflix, January 6th, 2025. So I'm looking forward to seeing how wild it gets up into that match and even the night of the match. What kind of antics, shenanigans, conflicts, chaos those two will have. And I hope the match delivers action wise and storytelling wise, that we're able to see uh, how far they can take the action on Netflix and what they have in store for us. So I don't think this will be their only match that they'll have, but for those two to headline the main event on a new broadcast partner for WWE, I think it's a no brainer to have them lead that match, or have that match rather. So kudos to them. Let's go. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and like and I think yeah, like you said, these we're gonna have a couple matches of this. I think we'll get a couple straight up matches, one win, and we get a stipulation match of some nature. Maybe for S&Gs, maybe CM Punk, his the stipulation is if he loses, the third match that he goes to SmackDown. And
Okay.
I think because there's obviously he's essentially done whatever he's done on Raw with Drew McIntyre and all that mess. I feel like it'd be a good fit for him to bounce over. Now that his feud nonsense is essentially ended, but I mean, I don't think this will happen until maybe after WrestleMania.
Right.
We're still waiting on the marquee match for John Cena at WrestleMania. He is essentially starting his essentially retirement tour. Like I know we talked about before, like it was like, oh, he's just WrestleMania. No, it is the whole length of the year. So we get 12 months of consistent John Cena for once in literally 5-6 years. So I mean, I look forward to what his bucket list is for the next
Right.
year.
Yeah.
I will say with certainty he will be in every PLE match. I would say for the rest of 2025.
I would
I
I would
think
agree with that.
there's no mild skating him on his retirement tour. I mean, he's going to be involved. He's going to be there every week. Whether it's Raw or SmackDown. I think he's going to absolutely give us the most John Cena we've gotten in a very very long time. And I think it's deserving of the fans because now no matter no matter if it's Raw or SmackDown in your city, you're gonna get to see John Cena for the last time. And I think
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I think that's the catalyst for his whole year end thing. No movies, no sidetracking, just straight John Cena.
At
So
least that's
I
at least that's the hope, that there's no movies, no, entertainment. He's just gonna go and give this year, you know, everything that he has. But whatever he's contracted to do outside of WWE, excuse me, um, we'll have to see, what they have booked for him and what works and what doesn't, and we'll just go from there. But I'm hoping that we do get a lot of consistency uh,
Right.
for John Cena based upon stories, who he puts over, who he helps on his way going out, if that's what they want to do. Um, I think this could be a very special retirement tour. Um, yeah, it could be something really, really special, or it could be very mediocre and lackluster, just based upon so much drama that we have with other stories. The Kevin Owens situation, we've got the Bloodline situations, we've got up and comers trying to make a name for themselves. We have Bloodline possibly imploding. It's the same with Judgment Day. We've got Final Testament stuff. So there's a lot to try to um,
Fit him
organize
in.
around John Cena, but you know, let's go. Let's see what WWE has in store. I think it's going to be a very entertaining year, especially when it comes to John Cena and his fans.
Well, and definitely with the talk and the experience and the veteranship of him, I think he's going to interject himself wherever he freaking feels like it. I feel like he's going to breathe some wisdom into especially the younger ones. I honestly think maybe this is me pipe dreaming, but like I think we might get a Carmelo Hayes John Cena match.
I
And
wouldn't. Yeah, I could see
in
there being a few really really
like
interesting dream
just
matches.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, and Carmelo Hayes has already had a match with, I think was it Randy Orton, I believe. Yeah, because he smacked him on the back of the head. So yeah, and I honestly think like again, Carmelo Hayes I feel like is the future. I mean, honestly, the now, but like I feel like giving him, the amount of experience with these veterans is only going to push him further. Same thing with Braun Breaker. Same thing with Trick Williams, hoping in the next like year or so he gets a call up from NXT. I mean, there's so much potential and so much things that John Cena could help along in the next year, whether it's matches or just wisdom. So, but so speaking of Braun Breaker, you basically get a run back match with him and Ludwig Kaiser. Obviously, Braun Breaker destroys him as he really has done to pretty much anybody he's faced. And he continues to put himself on the upper echelons of IC championship belt holders. I definitely see him even on, I mean, he was an off and on reign, but like, I definitely would put him in the top 10. Um, you know, Obviously there's quite a bit of, people within that top 10 list. I mean, but he's definitely working his way into that crowd. So, so we have again more, Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley nonsense back and forth. I just again we've said this a million times and I'll say it a million and one times is Liv Morgan does not fit in WWE without the belt in Judgment Day. And she doesn't even fit in WWE without Judgment Day. Because
Hmm.
her storyline is so thick with Judgment Day and having the belt and Dominic and Rhea. Like, if she's not in this story, I feel like I'm not saying she's gonna disappear or she doesn't have any relevancy, like to a certain extent, but like
You are definitely
she's
implying that, though.
I mean, but like it's tough when you basically get certain wrestlers that when they're at their peak of their career, it's because of the conflicts or factions or things like that. And so, but like again, like we've said before, is that eventually Judgment Day will eventually dismantle, and so we're gonna see where everyone fits from a singles or tag team mentality. because like it's not how good you are in a faction, it's how good you are after that faction, you know? Like, because
Yeah.
honestly, Damian Priest, bomb, absolute stud outside of Judgment Day. Rhea Ripley, same thing, you know? And so now, you know, we kind of seen Dominic mildly, very, pretty lackluster talent in the ring. But obviously now that, that with the Judgment Day, he has all this bravado and a caterpillar mustache, like, and so like I think he's gotten better. I just want to like see again in the next, let's say, year maybe. We'll see where everyone falls singly. I don't doubt at all Finn Balor. I'll never doubt Finn Balor. Now JD McDonough, definitely lower mid card. Carlito, they can just release him.
Oh,
You
I wouldn't
know,
release him, but
I mean, Carlito really hasn't done anything by himself since he's gotten back, other than like basically screw over the LWO and then join Judgment Day and then play uh, WWE 2K. So I mean, like, so I mean, I look forward to when things dismantle and you see what they've learned being in a faction with other veterans. Because obviously Carlito is a veteran. He was in it for a long time. Same thing with Finn Balor. And so, I hope that JD McDonough has soaked up a lot of knowledge from Finn Balor, especially because, they're pretty similar in stature, pretty similar in move set. And so like I want him to succeed beyond Judgment Day. And I guess that's all I'll say about that. But like, yeah. So, we'll move forward. But so we are starting up in the whole women's IC title tournament.
yeah.
One of our one of four triple threat matches that we're gonna have or slash had. And so you have Zoe Stark, Caden Carter, and Raquel Rodriguez, who I honestly thought Raquel Rodriguez was going to steal this. I thought with the Judgment Day poll, she was going to get a push. And lo and behold, and like Caden Carter, I didn't have much faith in, no different than Katana Chance being in the other triple threat. Like, I don't, I buy them. I'm all for them as a tag team, but individually, it just doesn't work right now. So Zoe Stark gets the steal win on this. I honestly like, as much as everybody hates Pure Fusion Collection, and I think like they're a weird group, but they're all super talented, right?
At least a weird name, but yes, they are. Yeah, they are all super talented. It's especially the Queen
Shayna
of
Baszler,
Spades
we're still
herself,
lobbying
Shayna
for her to
Baszler.
get a title
Yeah,
reign.
yeah. I mean, like,
I would
I
battle for
don't.
her as much as I'd battle for R-Truth. Like, give
Yeah,
these people titles, damn it.
yeah. I 100% agree. Like, don't let her age um dictate her not being a singles champion.
Right.
You gave it to Nia Jax, you can easily give it to Shayna Baszler.
Oh,
I mean,
100%.
let's just she would probably need a mouthpiece, but that's fine. Just again, questionable name for that collective of women, but their in-ring ability is top notch, and kudos to, in my opinion, to Zoe. I don't know if she'll be the first Intercontinental or the inaugural Intercontinental, but I definitely think she'll have a run with one of those mid-card singles championships easily within the next year or so.
Yeah. I mean, and all the things, and they all have MMA backgrounds. So like, that's really the kind of the craziness to it, is the fact that they all are extremely successful beyond WWE.
Right.
Especially Shayna Baszler, who, has the stuff with Ronda Rousey, and the longevity of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, I don't doubt that faction. Like, I could buy more into them than like Damage Control. Like, I think Damage Control without Asuka, without Bailey, I mean, and they're fine. They're not terrible. I don't mind Kairi Sane. I don't mind, Io Sky. I don't mind Dakota Kai. I don't mind them. It's just when I look at someone who just is dominant on a different level, like because Damage Control only really functions strongly with Bailey and Asuka. And obviously Asuka's on injury or whatever else. We don't know when she'll be back. But you just have people you look at and like, I wouldn't want to mess with Pure Fusion Collective. Like, you're scared of them, especially Shayna Baszler and her dark eye paint. Like,
Yeah.
and so like, but I mean, we don't really have too many big women factions essentially. So like, you really think about it, like I don't even on SmackDown, and I don't even know what we even have, honestly.
Yeah, I'm starting to agree with your take on Damage Control without Asuka, without a fourth member that can really like a veteran that besides Asuka that can really help blend that group and get them back on a very aggressive track. But I also know that both Kairi Sane and Io Sky have backgrounds in very extreme spots in professional wrestling, and they can take punishment as well as give it out. But I think with everything, they're biding their time. I believe Dakota Kai has returned, but they're not really pushing them, and I think that happens with I think that happens with every like tag team or every wrestler. There's those ups and downs, those ebbs and flows, but there's so much promise with them. But then the injury bug hit everybody, and this is what we have to deal with. So again, I think in 2025 we'll see something really special from them, even if it's like a handful of matches where they just all get to shine.
Right. And like all of them shined in NXT, and so like because Kairi Sane had her stuff, Io Sky has had her reign. I mean, hell, even Asuka had her stuff. So like, like they're a strong group when they're all there. And it's unfortunate. You get missing pieces, injuries happen. That's just the nature of the business. And especially when you're a high flyer. Because mistakes are down to happen, and that's just how it goes. But it's the risk for being an entertainer at a way different level, than the movies. I'm sorry. So like, there's no safety net, there's no pillow pad. Like, I still think honestly they're some of the best athletes because you have to have trust in the other person you're wrestling with.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And it takes a split second to make mistakes, and then you go to a point of beating yourself up over it, and so like and it happens, and it's unfortunate, but I mean the show must go on, and I mean, for 3 decades it has been. So you got to give it up to the mentality of the show must go on.
Right. There's always contingency plans, and they probably build the roster and storylines around contingency plans. But when everyone gets back, I think we'll see something something special. And I would say probably towards the middle of next year, 2025, we'll see something, a unique story for them, just to get them back on track. But like you said, the show must go on.
So speaking of the show, so Judgment Day finally gets their comeuppance with Finn Balor and JD McDonough. So like we talked about beforehand, is that so when the initial time of Finn not winning a championship, Damian Priest interrupted, right? And so then then we had the first time, and then we had the first kind of basically punch back with Finn screwing Damian. But the problem is with Mr. Finn Balor, he can't just screw Damian over once. He does it twice. So now the scales have turned, and so we get Damian Priest essentially screws over Finn Balor and JD McDonough, and the War Raiders win, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah,
I think the War Raiders, Viking Raiders, whatever you want to call them, they, Eric went through a hard time, okay?
yeah,
Like, I mean, he was out for a
yeah.
long time,
Yep. And then
you know,
Ivar, with his
and,
injury,
and Ivar did fantastic singles. Like,
yeah.
I think the true testament of this group is the fact that Ivar was basically singling it for what, 10 months, probably something like that.
I don't
You
know if
know,
it was that long, but yeah, for a
well,
very long
at,
time. And,
at least 6 months, and
yeah,
he shined.
yeah,
Like,
I think I've seen in other interviews that he has done just little clips, Chris Van Velt or Van Pelt or whatever his name is. Sorry, messed it up. But that he started off as a singles wrestler. So
yeah,
seeing him going back to that transition, transitioning back to being a singles performer wasn't like it
out
wasn't
of the it
new
wasn't
to
out of
him.
the realm, it wasn't out of the realm of experience. Like,
Right. And
and
he did extremely well and told the stories, did the work that he had to do. And I would not be surprised if them getting those titles, another run with those titles, was based upon the fact that Ivar did the work, did what was asked of him, and that was like a reward for him.
oh,
And it's also
100%.
also a transition from you know Judgment Day holding championships to not holding anything at all, and also building up the conflict between Damian and Finn. So it all works out, and kudos to again to the War Raiders, Viking Raiders, whatever their name is this week. They're you know I'm glad that they're back in the ring and they're able to perform because a lot of wrestlers aren't able to get back in the ring that have had neck injuries. Especially we can easily say like Big E, he has not been able to get back into the ring after his neck injury, and it's been a couple of years. So, and there's a whole story about that. So, kudos to them. I'm not mad about it. Uh, Let me have some more Balor versus Priest matches. I think there's some real good meat on the bone in storytelling
Oh,
for those two.
100%.
And I would not be surprised if, like you're saying, Judgment Day goes away. I see them floundering without Balor being an anchor for that group. And maybe that's what it needs to kind of like be dismantled and disassembled,
Yeah,
disbanded
because
even.
Finn does
Yeah,
not need to take any kind of character hit for leaving, and maybe he just chooses to leave, and and then, like you said, the slow dismantling of them. So,
yeah,
because
definitely.
I don't want Finn to lose any momentum of his his character and his athleticism. I don't want him to lose anything. I want him to gain everything by leaving.
Yeah, yeah. And
Because I've yeah
I think if I were to speculate, for some strange reason, he gets, I don't know how we get there right now, but he does get the world heavyweight title. He does get it. And I don't know how we get there, but I think he does get that. And maybe it is a conflict between him and Damian Priest, but I do think Finn is deserving of another championship run,
yeah
and unfortunately our truth isn't going to get a championship run before Finn does, but um yeah, Finn is just really, he's really excelling. And for the last couple of years, he's really excelled at a role of mentor for everyone else and for, just
right.
being his on screen character. So, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, and I think too with Finn Balor is that he needs to make sure he's clear of Judgment Day.
Mm,
I don't want any Judgment Day anything with Finn Balor when he goes and does his own thing. I don't want any repercussions between him and them. I want Judgment Day to just fall off authentically and just kind of dissipate. Like the faction was great in the original in the second, but the third is
yeah.
obviously garbage. And so like I want him to be able to leave and be free of the stigma of Bloodline or Judgment Day 3.0. So, that's kind of where I am. But we'll see what happens. I mean, I really think it's eventually going to happen. I mean,
Right.
it's kind of the same stuff. The Judgment Day doesn't hold as much water as other factions. I really I look forward to new Final Testament stuff. I look
Hmm.
forward to more of the Bloodline stuff, and maybe down the road we get something else to replace Judgment Day, because I feel like there kind of needs to be at least a handful of strong factions. But I just think Judgment Day 2 3.0 is not it. So,
Yeah.
so
And maybe
and
Judgment Day 4.0 is because they bring in someone who the group fits. Um,
um,
I Without Finn Balor, they are all like floundering, like you said. So
John
yeah,
Cena.
that would
He
be
goes
funny.
he goes on his heel run the rest of 2025.
Yeah, that would be funny. Yeah, let
I
him.
mean, he's
This
always
is
wanted
his.
to be heel, so
I mean, I think he has said he's already done that with his Doctor of Thugonomics.
I
Uh,
mean, I
I'm
love
sure.
Doctor Thugonomics though. Like I
And
like
I don't even really think that was a heel. I think that was just him being snarky, trying to promote himself as a rapper and as and
I mean, it
the
was a
previous
gimmick. It
regime
wasn't
really liked
like
it. Yeah, it was just a gimmick, and he was just it was just
word life,
whatever. It
you
wasn't.
know. Yeah. So SmackDown. Oh my goodness. So we are officially at a match with for the Ulafala between Roman Reigns and Solo Sokoa. And the weird thing is that I seen something the other day that makes me actually think different of Solo. And if you've listened to this podcast, you know how I feel about
I don't have
him.
to listen to a podcast to know how you feel about it.
But think about this.
Hmm.
He's pinned John Cena, he's pinned Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. Like kind of like that's acknowledgeable. I hate it because I don't want to, but like sometimes when you have things that are a such rare occurrence, you gotta kind of give the dude his flowers a little bit. I mean, maybe I'll give him 1 of 12, but like I really think like when you start like looking at his accomplishments, yes, he hasn't won a singles title. Really, he really hasn't won a relevant single title in from NXT till now, anyways. Because North American Championship doesn't really count because it was like a match that got debunked and he didn't actually get a belt. So like technically, he hasn't done anything belt, catching, in WWE. But I chalk it up the fact that he has honestly done his job, right? He did his job in the OG bloodline. He was basically the mildly Jacob Fatu esque in the OG. He was the enforcer. He basically came in, did all what he was supposed to do, and then he basically takes over this other bloodline 2.0. And honestly, like his mic skills have gotten better. His move set has gotten better. His fluency in the ring has gotten better. The persona's getting better. And
is
so like
is is all of that you just commented on, Mike skills, persona, move set, is it that it has gotten better, or has it always been there but toned down, or are you just getting comfortable with the character, seeing the character on TV?
I think it's more about like his like, because he came in not really doing anything, right? He was just kind of quiet, kind of sat there, just you know. And I think whether it's they loosen the chain, or it was already there, or whatever it be, he looks comfortable where he's at. And so like from them, whether it's loosening the chains or whatever it be, like if you look at it from a character point in WWE, his character is great. Like he if you much like the Miz, right? If
Right.
you get people to love you or hate you, you still make them feel something.
So here's the
It's
thing in comparison to the Miz. Um, I have no feelings either left or right for Solo Sokoa's character. Um, None. When I see him on TV and interacting, I'm thinking like, all right, when is this going to be over? When it comes to the Miz, in comparison, now the Miz does have a lot more of experience. I do feel negatively. I feel something with Solo. It isn't there yet, but I understand the relationship or the comparison rather that you have with Solo and the Miz. Solo is trying to get across this emotional response. Again, the major problem with Solo and his bloodline is Jacob Fatu. And it's not because Jacob Fatu is a negative. It's just that we are chomping at the bit, in my opinion, um, of when do we get Jacob unleashed. And
right.
unfortunately, it probably won't be until around WrestleMania season that they like give him a lot more.
I mean,
Uh,
loosen the leash
um,
a little bit, man. Like
yeah,
we know,
yeah,
like, and that's the thing is like you just search Jacob Fatu on YouTube, dude, and you'll see like what this guy's about,
yeah,
110%. Like
yeah,
this guy is
definitely.
not to be trifled with. Like I'm more scared of them unleashing Jacob Fatu than I am Solo, or when they did,
Yeah.
just because it doesn't take much to do a background check on Jacob Fatu. So like,
It, it,
you know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
like, you look at
there's
his resume beforehand, you're like, holy shit, this guy is a freaking
yeah,
freaking nature. Like
yeah,
Solo
and
kind of got thrust
yeah,
in with the bloodline of like the family relation and getting into the business, and kind of eased his way in versus Jacob
right.
Fatu that's literally 10 years the veteran to Solo.
Right.
And
So
so
here's the funny thing is about that is that I think you may have mentioned that Solo is he's not that good, you know, in comparison to other people in the bloodline,
right,
like his brothers, his cousins, he's just not he's not that polished. And when you see Jacob or you see Tama, um, you're just like, are they rubbing off on him? That's the question that I'm asking myself right now. How much is he putting in the work behind the scenes to get more comfortable? Who's like coaching him and mentoring him so he can
right,
do these promos and stuff like that? And again, what I would like is I would definitely like to see around WrestleMania time, um, Jacob, just like you said, just unleash him, let him go to work. He's been
right,
doing his thing and he's been super consistent. And just like Tama, they've both been really consistent in how they are currently being asked to portray their characters. But the moment they are given the green light to be like, all right, we need God, we need the Samoan
right.
werewolf for sure. You know, we got to turn it up a little bit. We're gonna get to see them really, really shine. Tama is not bad on the mic at all. He's not bad on the ring. And I think with Solo, his character growth, um, I think for me, it is more comfortability. Seeing, he's a familiar face on the screen as opposed to like he's been told to like, all right, be more comfortable on the mic, really like get the crowd to boo you and stuff like that. I think it's just more of him just being on the screen, like being like, you didn't earn this, you just kind of
Well,
took it, and blah blah blah. So
well, I mean, the thing is
yeah.
like he got like now that like I can see this is like when I start getting in my own thoughts, but like the weird thing is that I now that I'm thinking about it,
Hmm.
so Solo Sokoa and Dominic Mysterio, okay, they got where they are, like they got thrust in because it worked for the storyline, right? Because really, Solo didn't really do too much in NXT. He, before all of a sudden he just got boom, and all of a sudden he was the person that helped out Roman Reigns. When they were, it was like pay per view in Canada, I believe, and so you've watched them polish things and like learn things basically by being thrust into it, right?
Right.
Because essentially Dominic had to basically rush to be where he is, and honestly from 2 years ago to current, he's gotten better, right? And so
Yeah.
I think that's a good parallel to make, just because like you said, there's probably people behind the scenes really polishing and helping Solo. Like he might be the tribal chief, but he's also getting a lot of input from veterans,
and
whether it's
and I
in
think
just the bloodline or if it's the Rock giving him pointers,
right.
like wearing a turtleneck
And
and chains, like.
yep, I
And
think
so
that can be said in general about everybody who's trying to make their product and the overarching product top notch. That can be said about anything. It's like, our characters may have conflict, but we're still a team. We're still
right.
working together to entertain people using professional wrestling, right? So I think that there's other people that have probably like put into the side. It's like, hey, man, you may want to look at this, or you may want to do that. Or someone is just like, hey, I understand you got a couple of days off. I'll be training. Come work with me. I think I can, I know I
Well,
can help you
and
get
yeah.
better. And if you are there, you are not, if you're in the position being on TV and a vet comes to you and says like, hey, I want you to come and work out with me a couple of times, that is a thing, there's a couple of things I saw that I can make it better, you are not saying, oh no thank you, you're not saying that,
Oh,
you're
oh
like,
yeah, no,
you're going.
you'd be insulting. I mean,
Oh
but I
yeah,
think
yeah, oh
like,
yeah.
but I think that it like the overall product that we get speaks to the fact that there is decades and decades and decades of
Hmm.
experience behind those curtains that we don't see.
Right,
And so
right,
so we like they literally have the greatest minds in sports entertainment literally at their disposal.
right.
And so
And
I
it would
mean,
it
there's
would be
just
foolish
veterans
to
for days.
not, yeah, yeah, it would be foolish
Yeah. I
for
mean, and the thing is,
them not to grow. Like when Dominic came in, it was during the pandemic era, you know, and he was they paired him with his dad for a number of years, until that story ran its course. And, and they still paired him with veterans. They didn't let him like, flounder, you
oh,
know. They,
they can't.
yeah, I mean, the investment is there. There's contracts in there. Obviously no one's paying, whatever they're paying to just see Dominic. They're going to see the entire product, but at the same time, if Dominic's there, they're going to be invested. There's like, what is this kid going to say now that I'm going to have to boo extra loud or
Right.
respond?
Well,
If he
like the
wasn't
thing is
getting
like,
no energy, they wouldn't have him on TV. That's the
but
same with
that's the thing
Solo.
is, well, yeah, and it's like Dominic is so over in the sense of people hating him. Like I honestly like I've never, and even like I think it was when Triple H was there and he was like, "Man, I thought they piped in this noise." It's like there's genuine disdain, but like as fans, we all know it. We just don't like the character. Like,
Right,
and that's
right.
that's the entertainment and sports entertainment aspect of it, is that like we don't hate the people, we hate the character, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
sometimes that's the gig, like
Yeah.
sometimes, like I've said probably plenty of times, is that you have to go through character development, whether you're heel or face, to develop your character for the long term. And I
Yeah.
think honestly, like I see Dominic, in the echelons in the next 10 years. We'll give it a big gap. But like I think honestly he's gonna be on a level like Eddie. Like I think the potential's there, but I
Right.
think it's gonna be a lot of investing. People are gonna be investing in him for the future, because realistically half the roster we have right now probably won't be there in 10, 15 years.
No, they
So
won't.
we
And
have, again, I preach this because I watch everything, so I ingest everything, and
right.
there is so much on NXT right now that is mind-boggling. Like, I don't know if you remember the video that I sent way back in the group chat, like about Obafemi doing like an F10,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and so like you see this talent down there that like it's like, man, call this guy up. But the problem is, as good as he is right now, he's still learning.
Right.
You know,
And I
same
think,
thing. It's
it's it's a lifelong craft. I mean, like we were saying about Solo, during his segment, it's it's a lifelong craft. And what we're seeing is week after week, each character evolving. And Solo is just happens, people are paying attention to him now because, like you said, he has pinned, three working active legends. You know what I'm saying? And
mhm,
it's only going to get better, for Solo. But I personally am still not buying him as a leader, his character as a leader. He To me, Solo is coming off as the yes man for someone else behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And so, yeah, so as as decent as Solo is, he's only as good as his dance partners, and he's had some top-notch dance partners in the ring.
Oh,
He
100%.
Roman Reigns, John Cena, Cody Rhodes. Um, you know, yeah, he's his own brothers are phenomenal
But like,
in the ring.
right.
Yeah, so yeah, I
Well, and the
I
thing
think
is,
he's
but
just
like
more
the
comfortable
thing you
for me.
realize that he's listening,
Yeah, he is. He is. He's definitely
right?
listening because it's still, he doesn't, like you were saying, he doesn't sound as um stale on the mic. He doesn't sound
Right.
um it's
It's becoming very natural for him,
yeah,
and I
he's
think
not
once
trying
you
as
hit that
hard.
point where like,
Yeah.
well, and I honestly could only imagine, like, especially in WWE, right? Like, you have 15,000 people there, and you have millions listening to you talk, right? And
Right.
like, that's got to be nerve wracking. Like,
Yeah, it
I
is.
mean,
It's
in
gotta
all
be.
seriousness, like, obviously you're not talking to millions of people right there then and there, but you also are live with, 12 to 15, sometimes 100,000, 50,000 people, like, and like
Yeah.
that's got to be nerve wracking. Like, I don't care
Yeah.
how experienced you are, like when it comes to all that, like I could not imagine standing in a stadium with 75,000 people. Like when me and Tim went to WrestleMania, dude, like I could not imagine even having a mic in front of me that I have to say some things in front of 75,000 people. Like,
Yeah, I
so I think
it
it's
takes
coming
someone
with time.
who's yeah, it takes a lot of experience, a lot of coaching. There are some naturals who get it and who can work through those nerves, but some people they just can't. Ronda Rousey was one of them apparently. She just It was just a challenge for her, and that's why I think a lot of people wanted to pair her with Paul Heyman because it's so easy for Heyman. It appears to be so easy, and he can just talk and he can get you
Oh yeah,
invested.
I mean,
And if I think,
there's very
yeah,
few on Paul Heyman's level. I mean,
oh
like you
yeah,
think of Jimmy Hart, you think of Bobby the Brain Heenan, you think of all
yeah, hmm
these, or even freaking Paul Bearer. Like you think of all these great people that were just so good on the mic. Like
right,
they're not wrestlers, but damn, they best managers you that money can buy.
right.
And then
A great
sometimes
is,
if that's
yeah,
what you're good at, run it.
yeah,
Because like Paul Ellering. Paul Ellering is literally what, like 60, like 70 something years old, like still
hmm
out there doing the damn thing.
you know
You
what?
know,
And he has that.
like
He's
when
still
you
bringing
have a
that old
talent
school
like that,
flair. Yeah, yeah.
you know. So
Yeah.
we'll move along because we could probably spin
Mhm.
circles around this. But so speaking of Carmelo Hayes, so obviously the Grayson Waller effect was on, and what a joke. Honestly, I would agree. Someone said this is probably one of the worst SmackDowns I've ever seen, and it was honestly the show. Honestly, was pretty. It was like C minus level. But so we had Carmelo Hayes interrupts the Waller effect. They're interviewing Braun Strowman, blah blah. He comes out with a freaking vest. Like it was bad. But like, so Carmelo interrupts and basically wants another match. Obviously with a lot other things going on, Carmelo Hayes wins like via count out. So like you beat him, you won, but you didn't beat him.
Right.
So but this is why I love Carmelo Hayes, is because like he's cocky, and he's so cocky, and most of the time he backs it up, right? But he would rather be cocky and get beat up than be cocky and back down, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so like and he has this chip on his shoulder being a first round draft pick and all of these things that are playing in his favor to fuel his ego. And again, this is some guy that's going to be here in 10 years,
Yeah.
hopefully. you know
Oh,
and so like
yeah.
you have these young, or not even young, but just like young veterans, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And so like we have in 10 years, this product will be way the frick different. you know and
Well,
realistically, I mean, Triple H is what, like in his late 50s.
yeah. 55, 56. Yeah.
you,
Well, now I gotta know.
yeah, I mean, so in 20 years. But like, and so like a lot of these things that we're seeing now might not be, it'll be a different show 10 years from now. Or it could be the same show because they're just that damn good at their job. I don't know. But like, and I think that's the reality of it, is that like we have to understand that, these people from NXT, or people that are younger that come from like other brands like TNA, Ring of Honor, and stuff like that, like they're literally getting groomed for the future of wrestling in its entirety, because everything will change at some point.
Right.
But
Right. Oh, and Triple
but
H is
yeah,
50.
yeah. So I mean, not old, not young, but in 20 years he'd be looking like Vince McMahon, just a lot more in shape
Yeah.
and not on steroids. But so we've had this rise of this whole Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa kind of heelish,
Right.
outlandish tactics to win the titles against Motor City Machine Guns, and so now we're getting this. I would say a justifiable heel turn, I guess, for DIY. I think they've, I mean, essentially back, way back into NXT, like their faction, the Way, um, with Austin Theory, Dexter, and so they were kind of heelish, and I think like this is been the prime time for Johnny, especially Johnny, to be kind of more heel, because really Johnny Gargano has been kind of lost in the shuffle, for the majority of his main roster call up. And I think
hmm
now that him and Tommaso, because Tommaso I can buy as a heel,
Oh yeah. All
and
day.
so like Johnny just looks too nice. You know what I'm saying? Like I mean, he just looks like a nice guy. And so, like, then you look at Tommaso Ciampa and you're like completely polar opposite. And so, like, I think this is the best thing for him right now is to be that guy, be that asshole, right? And so,
Right.
like, it works because realistically, like, the the whole SmackDown like tag team division is pretty bleak. Even though I think they have probably more tag teams, but like it's very bleak because as soon as the Bloodline lost their titles, like that was kind of when it got kind of stale. And so I think like with Motor City Machine Guns coming in their third match, taking the titles, and then now you have this, so like the tag team division is starting to heat up,
Mhm.
and it's hard to heat up when you have so much other things going on.
Yeah.
And so like it's hard to stand out among giant storylines, we'll say. You know, and
Yeah.
so I
I
think
think you're
that
right.
I'm liking where this tag team division is going, especially on Raw with the War Raiders beating, Judgment Day. So now the tag team titles are out of all the conglomerate groups' hands. And so now we can go back to old school, just tag teams just going at it, no outside interference, just let tag division be tag division,
Yeah.
and not have dirty wins and dirty victory. Like, no, I want to just go back to good old school tag team wrestling, you know. And I think a lot of us can say we've wanted it for a long time because we've had, for the last 4 years, we had the Usos having both title or one title, and then them beating Randy and Riddle for the other two, and then now they had both titles, and then like
Right.
Judgment Day took both those titles. So we haven't had the tag team division independently of a group in 4 years. And so now we can get back to it
Right.
because now they're not with factions.
Yeah.
And I think
Definitely.
that is the best thing for the tag division. So speaking of tag,
Mhm.
so being that Jade Cargill got thrown off a freaking car or something, but
Yeah.
and we don't know who done it, but
Yet.
so Naomi has kind of interjected herself in the tag team that Jade Cargill was a part with Bianca Belair. I I still feel like there's a lot of unanswered questions with that, but so they defeat Nia Jax and Candice LeRae, no biggie. I mean, I really
Yeah.
don't even know why we're wasting our time putting Naomi in singles or in tag teams when she's the champ. So I
So I wouldn't. Yeah. Apparently, and I can only guess they're going this route. I don't think Jade is coming back anytime soon. Um, and we still got a little meat on the story. So if and when Jade does come back, at least Bianca doesn't have to, give up that championship because I don't think there's any other team right now that could carry the championships and make it and have some energy behind it that people would want to be invested in. You've got, yeah, you've got a handful of women's tag teams that probably could, but it would, I think the championships would bounce around, and it also gives us more speculation of who really did hurt Jade Cargill, who threw
right,
her
and
off,
we can
threw her onto
drag
that
that
card.
story out.
Yeah, and it gives people something week to week to look at. It's like, oh,
It's
Nate,
a good appetizer. It's a good
yeah,
appetizer. Like
yeah.
it's just something to nibble on while we're waiting for the main.
It's
I mean
it's it's for me, it's a very similar interest into who hurt Jade Cargill and why Naomi is with Bianca, and figuring out that mystery as to when Tiffany Stratton is going to cash in and who is she going to cash in on.
right.
It's the same energy. I don't think we won't learn in the next 2 weeks who hurt Jade Cargill, but it
Yeah,
gives us something to look forward to.
it's like leftovers that eventually will heat up
Yeah.
again and will be fine.
Yeah.
And and I think she actually had a legitimate injury, so it wasn't like
Yeah.
getting played off like that.
Yeah.
But obviously, I mean, there's so much looming around it though, just because it's
Right.
like I hate when like even the therapy, even like the extreme freaking YouTubers and all these wrestling podcasts and stuff that really have dived into the rumors, and even
Hmm.
their hands are up. And so
Yeah, it's like we don't, and I
it's
think that is good. That's good for professional wrestling because it could go either way, and
right. It's
it
open ended. I
gives,
mean, it's
yeah,
not.
yeah, and I think we need to have a little bit more kayfabe in our lives. When it comes to professional wrestling, we don't need to know every
Right.
storyline and all of its
You don't you
details.
don't you don't want you want to be surprised once in a while, like
Yeah, yeah,
because I
you
mean
do.
there's so many things, even the things they theorize sometimes, like I mean we're still waiting on quite a bit, honestly. Like
I'm still waiting.
We're still waiting for Alexa Bliss to return, Charlotte
No,
Flair to return, for
I'm a
Asuka to
Trump
return. I
you.
mean,
I'm a Trump you. I'm still waiting to find out who threw that pie in Kevin Owens' face. And you know what? I would like to never know.
James
A part
Ellsworth.
of me kind of, you know what? A part of me thinks it could have been Sami Zayn. But
No, James Ellsworth.
you know what? If Kevin Owens took that to his grave and everyone else in that scene takes that to their grave, that's fine.
It
We
was
don't
our
need to know
truth.
everything.
Our
You know
truth
what? If it
ended it.
was our truth, you know what? 100% give him the strap right now. Give him the winged eagle. Give him the world championship. Give him the 24/7 I-95
Give
championship
him a
again.
give him a slammy.
Yeah, give him a slammy. Best kept secret in professional wrestling. Our truth. So
Oh,
yeah,
like
you know what?
he's a diamond in the rough, man.
Yeah, yeah. Just shit,
Oh
not a
yeah,
rough. He's a
we could
diamond. He's
lobby
yeah.
for our truth all day. So obviously we have Netflix launch here in 2 weeks,
Mhm.
January 6th, and so from obviously multiple sources. So by the looks of it, we're going back to 3 hours for Monday Night Raw, and we're also going to get a 3 hour SmackDown. So I'm all for it because, like we said beforehand, is that this gives us more time to really let stories play out in real time. See, because a lot of times when you get these storylines, it's all social media, right?
Mhm.
And it's kind of unless you're really digging into it, you don't know. So now when you get these stories played out in real life, like some good backstage segments, cutting some good promos, or fights in the parking lot, I don't know, but like I like when things happen for all of us at the same time so we can digest it at the same time versus, oh, I go on John Cena's Facebook page, and like I don't want
Yeah.
to have to dig into it. I want to like digest it with the rest of the WWE fans.
You know, I have heard from several internet uh, commentators on professional wrestling and in TV in general that writing a 3 hour live television broadcast is incredibly challenging because you have to be entertaining for those 3 hours and more. When it's 2 hours, the thought was that it would be it would be easier. It would be less logistics, less people management, less need for storytelling. But from what you're telling me is that in your view, is that the product is suffering without that extra hour to let things transpire in real time. And I don't know how I feel about that. I haven't
Oh,
given it much
so
thought in the lines of like, would I rather have a 2 hour product or would I rather have a 3 hour product? I would rather have a 3 hour product if I knew that some of the mid and lower card performers would get the opportunity to shine and get the opportunity to be on TV. Or
Well,
and if not,
so like
I mean,
I'll give you the
what's
lowdown of how events go. So like
Mhm.
at live events, so if you've ever like watched it via a streaming platform, it's literally like an hour and a half, maybe two, like it's an hour and a half worth of stuff, right? So so with that being said, okay, so outside of in-ring matches, there are so many things in between the commercials. Like when you're at a live show, like they do so many different things within the live show, whether it's like looking at signs or like, you know, them like dropping us gems like, you know, in real time while there's commercials going on and everything else. So even with the 3 hour show, there's still only an hour and a half of content. So that's when you watch it on Hulu, whatever, like or you know Peacock, whatever it ends up streaming on, obviously Netflix in the future. But like, so there's only an hour and a half of digested material. So the other half of it is literally commercials. So like, it's that's the kicker of it all is that
right.
you know they might narrow down some segments, you know, and maybe like cut them down a little bit, but like realistically there's only an hour and a half of the product. So like even with even with a 2 hour show, there's still it literally still drops it down to an hour and a half of content. So there's realistically like an hour of just nonsense, like in its entirety, you know, unless you're like the like times when you're there, you're seeing everything. You're not even seeing commercials. So that's the thing is that when you're at a live show, you don't know when the commercials are. Like they're just wrestling nonstop. So like it's kind of mind fucking a little bit because like when you're like, oh, the commercial, oh wait, we're back. And so
Right.
like when you're at a live show, you're getting
Hmm.
the full gist of all the content. But when you're watching it from a streaming thing, you're only getting a like you're getting all the commercials added in. So like now the kicker of Netflix, like you said before, is that I don't know how we're gonna do the commercial stuff with Netflix. I don't know how we're gonna
Right.
get advertising stuff like that. So like if it was 2 hours straight of good content, I'd be fine with it. But like if we're gonna factor in like commercial breaks and all this side stuff, then obviously 3 hours makes more sense, you know, just to have let all this other stuff go on, let some
Yeah.
like storylines get told in back a little bit, or even in the ring. And
Yeah.
I think it's just more about like the more we get, the more we understand, and we're seeing it in real life, real time. We're not seeing it on YouTube clip like you know, like we did with Kevin Owens and freaking Cody Rhodes. Oh, a guy with a freaking camera phone. Yeah, okay, dude.
Mhm.
Like stuff like that. Like we're gonna be able to see that like as it plays out versus you know stupid little videos that say someone posted. But
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, but like, but again, we don't know how the Netflix stuff's gonna roll out. We don't know how they're gonna make the show. They're not how they're gonna produce it. How they're gonna segment things out. We don't know yet. We'll find out in a couple weeks, and maybe we'll love it. And maybe they're still in even with releasing it, are still fine tuning it.
Yeah.
So we don't know until we get there. So we have to sit and wait for the next 2 hours or next 2 weeks to see what it becomes. And, you know it's the wait and see. Like I said, I always kind of say is it's a wait and see game. Like because we don't know what things might change, things might you know pique their interest out of nowhere, and all of a sudden be like, hey, this is gonna work, and then they do it, it doesn't work, and then they fine tune it. But
Yeah.
so so as of now with the Netflix launch, we have Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa for in tribal combat for the Ulafala, in the title of tribal chief. So this match. Now this match is a cluster because the one factor, okay, so it's tribal combat, so it's basically it's gonna be just those two, no other bloodline members. It's supposed to be just a straight up match, right? Now
Right. Supposedly. Yep.
the one X factor is The Rock. Like that's my X factor in this match is that we know that The Rock is going to be there. We know John Cena is going to be there. We have all these outside people that are going to be there for this kickoff. But like this match in particular, like there's too many like like thought bubbles right now with this match. Because now, does The Rock basically go and help out Solo? Or for whatever reason, does The Rock turn on Solo and help Roman? I don't know. I would lean towards helping Solo, but I wouldn't take it past it to go the other way and maybe be like, The Rock was just fooling us off for the whole time, and he was just. But I mean, again, there's too many thought bubbles. It's a cloud of possibilities around this whole match, because I feel like the other matches are whatever. This is the match I'm worried about. This is the match that I have so much thought invested into this, because there's so many twists and turns that can happen. CM Punk, Seth Rollins, it's just gonna be a fight, gonna be a brawl, whatever. Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley, just gonna be a match. Someone's gonna lose, someone's gonna win. Life will go on. The story can keep on going on. But the problem is with Roman and the Solo and the whole Tribal Chief title and the Ulafala is that it's all in this match. The whole story is getting told right now with this match of basically what's going to happen in the future. And so this has the most implications, and it's just wild. It really is. There's so much story to this match.
There is.
Yeah.
There is.
I mean,
definitely.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's
yeah, I don't know which direction that you would go with this. I really, yeah, I personally just don't know. Do you, when it comes to The Rock, if he shows up on Netflix, who knows? I don't see why he would. I mean, I don't see why he wouldn't. But who does The Rock help? Or does The Rock help at all? Maybe he just shows up and he's just behind the scenes. Maybe it's Roman that gets over, that goes over, or maybe it's Solo that goes over.
There's so much to it. It's literally like a 6-foot grave of depth right now. It's because do we revert to Roman, which he was great for the last 4 years, but again, he lost everything. He kind of went away, kind of came back, and everybody thinks of him as that 4 years, holding up your ones and everything. But is that the Roman we're going to get moving into the future?
You know what? I don't know. I don't know what his commitments are.
It's just creepy.
And maybe with the outcome of that match, we will get a little insight of what he wants to do with his future, what WWE sees in his future, and that sort of thing. And it's kind of just a best guess, but I don't see the WWE investing historically. I don't see them investing in someone who wants to move to a part-time. Which Roman could. And I don't see at all in any of the bloodline them behaving in a way that is selfish. You know what I'm saying? They may storylines front facing, with the WWE universe, may come off as being selfish, but for family's sake, for bloodline's sake, behind the scenes, they're going to make decisions that continuously strengthens and invests in the family, and at least that's the hope. So whatever the outcome is, I'm sure it will be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if Solo does win, because that could be so much more interesting for Roman Reigns and for the bloodline in general than having Roman Reigns wins. Roman Reigns winning and winning the Ulafala could be a nice way to kind of start to. Yeah, Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns wins the Ulafala.
Marilyn Wayans?
Roman Reigns. No, it it could be a good way to wrap up that story for Roman, and have him move on and move back towards getting that championship back, and that could lead into a bigger story of The Rock, or having The Rock screw over Roman could lead into that way, into that
It could
match
lead
as
to
well.
It could lead to that match at WrestleMania that we were supposed to get 2 years ago.
Yeah, right. So for me, it could go either way. And I think I would be okay with it because, again, I'm still not invested in the bloodline so much as everyone else. I think there's other stories that are more interesting to me, but that doesn't mean I don't want to pay attention to it. It just means
Right.
that if, I'm I'm not
It's not an
I'm not
investment where you'd love it if it went one way and you'd hate if it went the other way. Like
right, right,
we're kind of in like this like almost purgatory, like where it's like we don't know
right.
if it's gonna be good or bad, but we'll like it, I guess. And so it's
Yeah.
like it's
But
tough
also too,
because
if it did go um if it did go Solo's way, next week I could be like, "Oh man, I don't think, that's the way they should be booking it, or that's the way it
right.
should go." You know, I don't
It's
know,
it,
but as I
it's a level, yeah.
yeah, it's how I feel right now. But like you were saying, it's probably a love-hate thing. It's like, I love to hate it and hate to love it, but whatever you decide, I guess I'm here for the
Right.
ride. You know what I'm
Well, I
saying?
mean, and that's
So,
been the longevity of the whole company has been filled with people who don't, they hate to love it, love to hate it. And it's I mean, it's just kind of crazy because there's so much to this, because
mhm.
like you said, would it make more sense if Roman like just kind of he lost because of The Rock, and then we can get that Rock and Roman match at WrestleMania without a title. So like it doesn't have to matter as much,
Yeah.
and I think that with the Cody stuff, like I mean there was things saying he was supposed to vacate it or something like that, but like because of an actual injury or something, but
Yeah, I saw that too.
I think I can speak for a lot of I'd say the overwhelming majority of wrestling fans when I say like we're done with Cody being champion. And it's not that we don't love Cody. We're just done with it, right? We want to close the book on his story and move on to something else.
I think
Like
we've
because
hit a I think a lot of people have hit a wall with it, and I think this whole Kevin Owens uh story arc, it has I think if done correctly, it could reinvigorate Cody's story in the sense of a stolen championship that was uh, um, unarchived for him, and that championship, especially it being on Saturday night. But there's still that conflict or that issue that The Rock has with Cody. So it could. There's so many layers. There's so many different ways you think it could go. You could speculate how it goes. I think. I think doing everything in your power in order to keep the crowd and keep the WWE universe interested in your current babyface champion, I think you should do. And I
yeah.
think WWE, the creative side, has like recognized that, all right, we've got to reinvest in our champion because we need our champion. So what can we do? What stories can we tell? And this is just one way of getting the crowd reinvigorated. However, what we have seen with Cody Rhodes historically is once they turn on Cody, they turn on Cody and they leave it. They
Oh,
just
100%. Oh yeah.
yeah.
No, it's well, and like
It's
honestly, I would be all for Kevin Owens beating Cody for the title. Like because of how they lost before, how Kevin lost before, kind of not pulling the trigger on doing something, and so like I feel like given Kevin Owens kind of character now, I feel like having heel champions on both Raw and SmackDown, I would be for it. Just because it's always kind of one or the other. Like you'll have a face and a heel, and you kind of like when you did Survivor Series back in the day, it was like, oh, let's pin the loved champion versus the hated champion, and then go ahead. But what would happen if we had two bad heel champions? Like, if we're in this new era of Triple H, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities. I mean, we're obviously people have asked like, oh, I don't know how the Triple H era is going to go. I'm like, it's got explosive already in the last year. I mean, now we have a new women's United States champion. We're working our way towards a women's IC title holder, and I think the opportunities are through the roof right now. We finally split the titles back up for the men's tag team division. Thank God. We switched off the belts with making a new World Heavyweight Championship title, so Roman wouldn't have to lose his title, but he lost a title kind of thing. And so like there's a lot of things that I would not count out for Triple H to do. And being that he's a better manager of the business than I really think he was in the business. And that's not taking away from his 14 title reigns and all the DX stuff and all that stuff. It was great television, but like if you pat that against everybody else that's for the last 30 years, like it's just another story, And so like I think he is a great mind for the business, not just because he has the experience in it, but he listens to the wrestlers now. And so like the fact
I think
that
there's something to be said, like you're saying, like when you come up as a performer, as a wrestler, as opposed to not, and then you learn everything you possibly can about the business, and then have the opportunity to implement that. I think there's a lot to be said about that.
Well, and you also have Stephanie McMahon, who, short of Vince McMahon, has grown up in this business. So, like, whether she's not going to be on screen, but she'll be in the boardroom. I mean, and she'll be in the creative meetings because she's grew up in it, like legit, zero to current. She has been involved in this business. Like, that's a lot of experience. And she's been able to see what works and doesn't work and how to do things, whether it's in the ring or behind the curtain. Like, we have literally the greatest mind in wrestling.
There's definitely there is definitely a collective of really like the best of the industry, from Paul Heyman to Michael PSAs to Bruce Pritchard to some of the producers and agents that are working behind the scenes. They were in the ring during either the Attitude Era or PG era, or
they still have R-Truth.
Yep, they still have R-Truth. So you have all of these, you have this like brain trust of how to make this WWE thing work and how to make professional wrestling work. And it's just insane of what directions that they can take and where they can go with certain things. And it's just insane, how much creative talent that they have and that they can pivot to, and that they can just do. I mean, they're finally giving Karrion Kross. I thought he was just going to be a jobber, at one particular point. Now he's got he's got a sizable story for the first time since he's returned, and he doesn't look like a punk. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah,
Um,
I mean, and that's the
yeah,
thing is like and sometimes that's just what happens, you know. Like we've been saying for forever is that like you have to in order to get to it, you have to go through it. And so some of these wrestlers have gone through so many different characters, and then finally they take the best of every one of their characters and they mold it into one, and it works. You
right.
know, like when Final Testament first kind of got out there, I was like, but I think
What
the
is
best
this?
thing for
Yeah,
Final Testament is they needed someone, other group to feud with. And so like the fact that they're in this whole feuding with Wyatt Six and stuff, and they're beating him, like it adds so much to them. And honestly, like they're no schlums. Okay, AOP, like I mean, they got released, you know, a long time ago, and here they are again, still looking as bulked up as they did before.
yeah.
You know,
I
and
mean,
then
yeah,
you have Karrion Kross and honestly, I think everyone falls under Paul Ellering. Okay, like I think it's Paul, Karrion, AOP, and then we just toss in the Miz. But like, you know, and I think like Paul Ellering has the ring IQ. You know,
right,
and he's someone he's been involved in the business for probably 40 years. You know, and so when you have that IQ and you have a group of guys that need guidance, and that's where they fall. And I think it's showing that Carrion's listening, AOP's listening, you know, and you've taken all this knowledge and you've put it into one.
right.
So, you know, I look forward to whatever they bring for AOP. I really hope some title belts come soon, maybe in the next 6 months. I hope less. I really think that but I think the storyline they're in doesn't have anything to do with belts, and that's kind of how it is right now.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I think outside of WrestleMania, I think leading into a couple months outside of WrestleMania, I think Wyatt Six will go. The Wyatt Six probably go do something different in like the next couple months. But so I think the only thing left for Final Testament to do is to show dominance in tag team championships. So, but you know, we'll wait and see. I mean, there's no other
that's
way
all
to
we
put it
can
in
do.
wrestling
Yeah,
is to wait and see. So, you know, but you know, we'll put a pin in this. We'll see what we come up with this week. Obviously, we have Christmas on Wednesday, so Merry Christmas to all of you who actually listen, or whatever holiday, Happy Kwanzaa, you know. But like,
yeah.
but but
It's
no,
so
and so you know,
sensitive.
it's been a ride, man. We're
Yeah,
coming up on the end of the year, which is crazy to think, and I mean, and we're literally 4 episodes away from already booting into season 3, which is honestly incredible. I mean,
yeah,
I thought this podcast would dry up and it wouldn't work, but here we
yeah.
are. So
Here we are.
I appreciate anybody who actually listens and puts in the views. I know there's only 32 subscribers, 2 of them are you
So
guys,
far,
but you know, I mean, I messaged about 15 different wrestlers on Instagram
all
with
right.
my number, and I am gonna damn it if I do not at least get one. Okay,
Well,
I messaged NXT people, I messaged main roster, because you know what, you don't make shots, you'll never make a shot unless you shoot. So you know,
yeah,
I think that put us over the friggin' that put us in
yeah,
like 100 subscribers after that if we got someone on here. But
yeah.
yeah,
There's
I
always room to go. Sky's the limit.
yep. So wish you guys all a Merry Christmas. This is the Lockdown Podcast.